Back again with another fantastic preview for you. This time is the FIFA World Cup final game between Spain and Argentina to be played at the MetLife Stadium in New York, New Jersey. It's been an amazing tournament so far, 103 games down. This is the 104th, the very first competitive fixture between Spain and Argentina. Now, I'm going to take you through the tactical breakdown, what I expect the two teams to do on the pitch today. But before I do that, please subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications. Anytime I drop a new video, you're going to be the first to receive it. Let's go straight into our tactical board today. And I expect Spain to start with Unai Simon in goal, Pau Kubase and Aymeric Laporte playing in the center of defense, with Marco Correa at left back and Pedro Porro at the right back. In midfield, I want to see Rodri Cascante double with Fabian Ruiz in that double pivot role, and Dani Olmo playing in the number 10, Alex Baena playing in the left channel on the left wing, and Lamine Yamal Ibana Nazraoui playing on the right wing in that right channel, and Mikel Oyarzabal playing right ahead of them in the striking position. Now, let's look at the Argentines, because I think that Dibu Martinez, he's had a very fantastic tournament for the Argentines so far. He will start in post with Lisandro Martinez and Cuti Romero playing in the center of the defense. Molina playing at right back. Nicola Tagliafico playing at left back, and then Paredes playing right ahead of them in that single midfield, holding midfield role. I expect to see Alexis McAllister and Guillermo Simeone playing through the channels on the right and on the left, and Enzo Fernandez playing high up the pitch ahead of them, and Lionel Messi and Julian Alvarez playing the forward line for the Argentines. Now, there's one specific thing about this Spanish team. They haven't considered so many goals. In fact, they've considered just one goal all through the tournament. That goal came against Belgium, I think in a round of 16, I must say. And that goal came through the right-hand channel. There was a cross to the right-hand channel, and then there was a header from Charles de Ketelaere. He got that goal for Belgium against Spain. So it's very difficult to diagnose how to properly beat this Spanish team, because they have done so well defensively in this particular tournament. But you look at Argentina, the same cannot be said of them. They've conceded about 7 goals, and some of those goals have come in very questionable circumstances. So it's something that we'd want to look at briefly. But to approach this game, I think Spain's tactics throughout the tournament has been very clear. We saw that typically in that game against France, where they utilized a lot of interpositional play to get a lot of players running through the channels, running through the spaces, and combining play to free other players to get into space, confusing some of their opponents, so to speak, and then getting Pedro Porro to even get that very brilliant second goal that he scored for Spain on that day when they beat France. So it was quite a very good gameplay strategy from Luis de la Fuente and his boys, and I think they're going to do something similar tonight. The only thing I want to highlight about Spain is that most of the time, when you look at their players through the channels, right, they, as much as possible, attempt to also utilize their laterals, so in Cucurella and in Pedro Porro. And there are times where when they're not able to get the crosses in through the right or through the left, they end up playing sideways passes. So Fabian Ruiz is called into action, Rodri is called into action, and they end up recycling play and moving it from right to left. So there are times where you even see Pau Kubasi join in the midfield. He comes as far as the center line to help in making sure that he's able to distribute the passes from left to right, especially when you're not able to penetrate through the channels. That is what we saw in Spain's first game at the World Cup against Cabo Verde, where they couldn't score any goal. They were severely frustrated by the Cabo Verdeans. And after that particular game, what they decided to do was that they would utilize interpositional play. So they will make sure that players are in certain positions that they can help to get other players to move into other positions. So let me give you a very typical example of what I'm talking about. There are times where Fabian Ruiz, he drops deep into the right-hand space. And once Fabian Ruiz drops into this space, there's no other option for Pedro Porro than to go high up the pitch. Now, in Pedro Porro going high up the pitch, he calls for players like Tagliafico to come into his particular position. And this means that Alexis McAllister is also going to be making sure that he prevents Lamine Yamal from getting into space. But then this creates some gap over here that could be filled by players like Dani Olmo running into this shape. You also get Rodri and Alex Baena going over the top, trying to get some space in and around the box, in and around the area around the penalty box, so that they could also fill those spaces and wait for the passes from Pedro Porro to Dani Olmo before it comes into the area where Mikel Oyarzabal can pick up and finish on goal. So typically they get players to jump onto other players who have created decoys so that they can get more space on the pitch and then play through their opponent. And that is one thing that you would expect to see from the Spanish today. Now, if you've taken notice of Argentina very carefully, they've conceded 7 goals in the tournament so far. Now, those 7 goals have come through the left channel where Nicola Tagliafico often, operates from. And when you look at it very closely, most of those goals are scored when the crosses come in from the right, and then there's, some tussle in and around the 6-yard area just within the 18-yard box at the far post where you would consider the corridor of uncertainty. So typically, you saw that goal that Anthony Gordon scored for England against Argentina. That goal was scored through the corridor of uncertainty where a one-time cross on Morgan Rogers came in from the right, and then Anthony Gordon was able to slot home. And sometimes it's as a result of the inability of Nicola Tagliafico or whichever player is operating in that channel from coming back on time or missing a certain tackle. So those are the areas that Spain will be wanting to utilize the more. If you really want to get a goal against Argentina, you want to utilize those wide areas because Nicola Tagliafico often finds himself moving very high up the pitch. And once you move very high up the pitch, you are not able to get that particular, recovery that you need to be able to do when there's a counter attack or there's a break. So that is something that's very important for us to take note of. So if you have a player like Lamine Yamal operating in this channel, then it means that what Lamine Yamal can typically do is to draw Nicola Tagliafico onto himself when he has the ball in that space. Then it frees the space for players like Pedro Porro to either make underlapping runs or overlapping runs to receive the ball and to get the cross into the box. So that is very, very important. Then you would want to have players like Mikel Oyarzabal, Alex Baena coming in from the left, and Dani Olmo also operating through those channels to latch onto it and try and get a shot at goal. That could also help the Spanish to get to very, important shots at goal in this particular game. Of course, the influence of Rodri and Fabian Ruiz is also not in doubt because aside the fact that the two are quite combative and would be very instrumental and crucial for their game tonight, you expect them to utilize certain decoy runs into certain channels to also free spaces for players like Pau Kubase and Aymeric Laporte to also push forward and also try and get into the channels by releasing those balls through to Mikel Oyarzabal and to Dani Olmo as well. So those are going to be very, very crucial things. Exploiting the left-hand channel, so Lamine Yamal or Nicola Tagliafico, drawing him onto himself and then freeing space for Pedro Porro to get crosses into the box. And then you also expect Fabian Ruiz to drop down, release the ball as quick as possible to players like Kubasi and also Lamine Yamal, playing through those triangles, carving the Argentines up and making them suffer and making them run as much as they can to be able to get those goals, to be able to get those chances to create on goal in this particular game. Now, let's shift our attention to what Argentina could do in this game because they are also coming with the kind of mentality that they have played their knockout games with, where Messi has been very instrumental. So when they find it very difficult to score goals, they rely on a certain Lionel Messi's ability to drop deep, receive the ball, get crosses into the box, and that is what works the magic for them. And I think that is a very nice way of using Lionel Messi in the twilight of his career. So all the attention is not on him. You cannot say that Lionel Messi is the one who's going to literally carry the ball and walk it into the back of the net. But you get players who are going to wait and listen or watch the signals of Messi and how he orchestrates the play before they can decide to take certain actions. And we've seen it through the knockout stages, how they've won their games against Cape Verde, against Egypt, against Switzerland. They've had very, very good ways of winning the games using Messi as their outlet to be able to, get those very, very important, victories for themselves. So let's look at the Argentine national team and how they could shape up and play. Now you look at them very carefully, and you do notice that if players like Guillermo Simeone start tonight, it means that they are going to have a very combative mindset like they had against England. Of course, that game had other undertones, but if that game is anything to go by, it means that they found a secret weapon that they can use against any opponent. And playing against Spain in the final, you want to utilize that same strategy if it eventually wins you the FIFA World Cup trophy. So, of course, I expect to see that Lionel Messi in most parts of the game contributes to play. So if Lionel Messi is in the left-hand channel, Julian Alvarez is operating just in front of the penalty box with Alexis McAllister, Guillermo Simeone also playing through the channels, and Enzo Fernandez also moving high up the pitch, and Paredes also pushing up, with Molina and Nicola Tagliafico also playing through the lateral areas and the wide areas. You would expect to see that an Argentina side is getting ready to really push men forward and get the ball through the channels and get that goal. But if they're not able to get a goal and it's the second half and things become very difficult, you expect Lionel Messi to drop deep, pushing men forward. Then he may draw players onto himself, or he may find a way to find Guillermo Simeone through the channels, play those 1-2 balls with Molina, and the ball comes into the box. You have players like Julian Alvarez coming into the box, Enzo Fernandez coming into the box, Alexis McAllister coming into the box, and that is how they are able to force their men through the channels to get those shots at goal, those headers that can help them to get those goals. And that is what they have done all through the knockout stages. And you look at Lionel Messi with his age and all the things he's doing, and the fact that if they still find it very difficult, they can bring players like Lautaro Martinez from the bench to come and orchestrate something deep in between the lines in the penalty box to be able to help them to win. Those are things that you would expect Argentina to re-emphasize in this particular game and help them to get that victory. But let's see how it goes. I think that this is typically the strategy that Lionel Scaloni and his boys are going to implement on the day. But let me know what you think and how you think the game is going to end. I have called it for Spain. I think Spain is going to win that 1-0, 2-1, or 3-2. I think we're going to have a very good game. Subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, and let's have the discussion after the game and see who wins. And I'll see you in the next one.